We believe we have stopped the decline. We are not where we want to be. Look, our president's message in the Renewed Hope agenda is, let us confront our reality. We took the bold choices. Today, state governments, local governments, and federal government is better funded. Of course, if inflation is there, cost of living challenges is there, not only unique to Nigeria. In fertilizer price, energy prices, and cost of living crisis is being witnessed in many countries. But that is not to comport us, but just to illustrate. So the message is that we are confident we have turned the economy in the right direction, and we have seen the worst. We can only reap bountiful harvest going into the future.
Well, as you may have seen, we've got Senator Ibrahim Shekarau here with us. He's a former governor of Kano State, former Minister of Education, of course, also was a senator. Good morning and good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Chamberlain. It's a pleasure being here again.
Yes, I forgot to add, Chairman, not
the
League
of Northern Democrats.
What is that about, though?
Well, I think the League came about as a result of various conversations, discussion cycles, lamentations all over the place. And many of us felt that we need to sit down and address these issues. This does not mean we do not appreciate efforts of the various sectors, many organizations up here in the north. But a number of us across the political parties, it's non-partisan, but it's political. And you have all kinds of categories of people. You have the women, the youth, the technocrats, the politicians, the business community, and every sector is represented there. Our concern is, number one, to mobilize our general public. You see, Chinua Achebe used to say that when things fall apart, the center cannot hold. If all our states and the regions and the various sectors of Nigerian community are falling apart, the center will not hold. So it is not necessarily about the central government, it's not necessarily about any political party. We felt that let us start from looking inwards. Up here in the north, people are wondering whether we are starting any political party. I said, look, even the Constitution does not recognize regional political parties. And when we say north is regional, so it's not about forming any political party. After all, some of us still belong to our different parties. I mean, PDP, the convener was APC, and many others. Almost about 4, 5, 6 parties are represented there. The main thing there is that we come together and look at the challenges up here in the north, and we mobilize our society, we mobilize our communities, we mobilize our leaders. Look, let's look at the various challenges that we are having. We identify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas, and also call upon the governments to look inwards and see what we can join hands together and address these issues. You see, while you are talking of the leadership, you are also talking of the followership. Now work together.
That's a key part, because I know we just heard the Minister of Budget and Planning, Atiku Bagudu, saying they've gotten certain things in place. But over the weekend, many were privileged to see or even watch, for those who did, former head of State General Yakubu Gowon commemorating his 90th.
Yes, exactly.
And there are a group of people, generations, who sit back and wonder, they don't know what do we make of all of what they see. Because now, if you fast track to today, they just ask themselves, look, if leaders, incidentally, you're talking about coalition of Northern Democrats, if they had taken certain decisions, Northern leaders, over the years, many feel this country would have been way better than we are now.
Well, I cannot but agree with you. You see, one may argue that why now? You see, for everything in life has to have a beginning. You have to first get a point to start. We have been talking and praising the Sardauna period and all what they have done. It's over 60 years now. We need to look back, and the generations behind us, generations yet unborn, will not forgive us. I was at the various sessions of the 90th anniversary of General Gawan, and as you rightly said, we had all the stories. Gawan did this and so on. Our problem is that, you see, we keep experiencing a situation whereby we always said previous government was better. You're complaining today. When the government leaves, another one comes, you say that of yesterday was better. So we felt that, look, we must stop all of this. And Chamberlain, we all know that part of our problem generally in Nigeria is lack of political stability and continuity. Of course, the military interventions has not helped matters, because if you compare with other countries who got their independence just about our own time, I had a study tour on Malaysia while I was in office. Malaysia is as old as Nigeria in terms of the time of our own independence, but you don't have more than 5, 6 leaders of the nation of Malaysia up to today. But today, I'm sure, if I ask you to count, you may likely miscount the number of people we've had. And, well, we've gotten this 25 years since the current dispensation of the current democracy. But even then, it is still below average. So I think we are just saying, let's pause now and stop lamentation, stop complaining. This is bad, anybody that. I say, let's look inwards. Identify what exactly are the issues, particularly up here in the north. We agree that we have a lot of challenges. You see, anytime you talk of the number of children out of school, you say in Nigeria, and then the 60, 70, 80% is up here in the north. People will always tell you in the past, agriculture used to be the mainstay thing holding the economy up in the north, what is happening now. And one thing that I kept saying since I came into office in 2003, I discovered that not only in the north, generally in Nigeria, Chamberlain, the states are what I call over-independent of one another. There are no 2 states in Nigeria that I know are doing anything together. And this is not helping us. And these are some of the issues we want to really bring to the board and then call the attention. There are many things that if states will collaborate and work together, a lot of these things are likely to change for the better. Agreed, I've seen the Minister of Budget saying all of these things. We're not saying government is not moving, doing its own best, but I think it is still below average. We believe that a lot more could be done much, much, much better than where we are today. And this is what we're trying to do. Another thing that the League is trying to address is the unity. You see... Unity
in the north or in the country?
Well, unity in the north and eventually in the entire country. If you remember, in the last 2, 3 decades, before now, nobody is talking of this so-called Hausa Fulani. It's a thing that has been thrown into the throats of the people. People talk of far north, core north, and so on. These are all stupid things that have been brought in. We used to be one community, one people, but now the bits and pieces of the ethnicity, tribal differences, and so on have come in. Agreed, in the north we have the largest number of different ethnic groups, but we are the same group, these ethnic groups were existing long before independence, and we were living in peace. So these are some of the things that we want to address. We identified about 4 or 5 issues: the issue of unity, issue of the economy, issue of education, issue of insecurity. So all of these things, rather than waiting for the government and even the state government or the central government to come and address it. If you take the issue of insecurity in the southwest, in the northwest, if you look at Sokoto, Zamfara, Kebbi axis, and maybe some part of Katsina, each of the states is doing its own bit on its own. What stops all the 3, 4 states that are in the same zone coming together, working together? I'm sure I've never had anything like that they've come together.
The former governor of Kaduna tried it, but he said for some reason they weren't able to pull through for the region.
No. That is very naive, and unless we really get together, in terms of even the resources we're spending. Zamfara will be spending its own money, setting up its own vigilante groups, spending a lot of money, and doing their own thing in terms of security analysis and architecture. Sokoto is doing this, a different thing, Kebbi is doing a different thing, Kaduna. And you find that there is no border stopping these people from one end to the other. If you chase them out of Sokoto, they'll go to Zamfara. Chase them out of Zamfara, they'll go to Katsina, they'll go to Kaduna. And I believe, even if the states on their own fail to do it together, I think the federal government need to sit up. I'd say, look, call the governors concerned within the environment, within the territory, within the area of this insurgency, and work out a common front. The last few weeks ago, the military moved into Sokoto because of the killing of the emir of Gobira and so on. They want to flush them out. But what did they do to ensure that when they are flushed out, they do not run to the neighboring states and the same challenge? So next time you just move the military into... I think what people used to call the security architecture used to and need to be addressed. Of course, we appreciate the security agencies. While we're in the Senate, another committee was set up, and I can say that I was the only one that submitted a volume of a document of submission to the committee. I looked at the issue. Look, when you look at the security agencies, the number is inadequate, the equipping is inadequate, the training is nothing to write home about, the welfare is not there, and of course, when you talk of the pension, I was in charge of pension in the Senate, and I know what they all pass through. If you take the Nigerian police, up to today we are talking of less than 400,000, 350, 400 plus thousand. I always compare with Egypt. Egypt is 80 plus million, almost half of Nigerian population. But Egypt has about 1 million policemen. But we're over 200 million, Chamberlain. We're still about... We're still not up to 500,000 of the police.
Maybe that's why we create a different agency for every single thing that we think of.
Exactly.
Because ideally, these are things that police should be able to do. People have talked about how the police should be able to ensure that traffic runs smoothly, manage traffic, manage corruption. We have an EFCC to look after that, manage vehicles on the way. We have VIO for that, So maybe we found ways to increase the numbers without exactly doing
you
something
recall
about
that during our 2011 debate where I, Buhari and Nuhu, I challenged Nuhu. I said, look, if federal government, if Obasanjo had not over-pampered you with funds, you wouldn't have performed. Give the same Nigerian police the funding you are giving to FCC, they will perform. Yes, when the FCC is detaining people in guest houses, the police are detaining in very smelly cells and very terrible environments. Give them the same fund, they will perform.
So let me quickly just bring that in, because since you've mentioned the EFCC, you've seen the attempt by a number of state governors in recent times to move for the scrapping of the EFCC. They say it is an illegal entity. What are your thoughts on it?
I think I don't agree with that. After all, I think it's backed by law. I'm not a lawyer. I don't think it is an illegal entity. Unfortunately, what leads to all this complaint is probably the way the FCC operates. See, in the past, during Nuhu Ribadu, with all due respect to him, he will mobilize 1 a.m., 2 a.m., surround the house, all the force, putting people, handcuff, and so on. All this is unnecessary. You see, EFCC is not supposed to behave like the typical security man in Nigeria, hiding in a corner, waiting for you to commit the offense and jump out to arrest you. No, EFCC should be out to enlighten people, even people in government. How much of the efforts have EFCC made to ensure that people in government are enlightened, are educated, to know what are the challenges in managing their finances? You don't wait until the offense is committed. How many of the people, with all due respect, that find themselves in government, that do not know anything to do with the financial instruction, store regulations, civil service rule, the procurement procedures, and so on. All these things are issues that we need to let people in government know. It's not just about the bureaucrats in the office, the directors, the schedule officers. The president, the governor, and our legislators need to be taken along to understand all of these laws.
Are you saying people are corrupt because they don't understand the laws?
In most cases, from what I've seen that is happening in most of the governments, you see, I'm just lucky that I have been in the bureaucracy for many years, so I know all of this. But a number of the charges from EFCC is charges bordering violation of the rules, violation of the procurement procedures. These are some of the things that are causing all of these things. And I believe EFCC needs to do a lot more rather than waiting until the offenses are committed. I look forward to seeing them enlightening people in the government. Immediately people are brought into office, they should reach out to them, organize retreats for them, organize enlightenment. I think ICPC used to do this. I don't know whether they are still doing it. But rather than scrapping all of it, I think they should go all out to enlighten the public, enlighten particularly that people that find themselves in government.
So you do not want the EFCC to be...
No, I don't support its total scrapping.
It's total scrapping. In other words, a partial scrapping.
Well, my thinking is that EFCC need to really look inwards and change the approach, the style of their operation. Look at the recent drama we've been experiencing between the EFCC and my brother from Kogi State. I mean, it's very embarrassing to all of us. Both the EFCC and my friend Bello have not held matters. EFCC has not handled the situation in the best of ways. Look at the chairman publicly saying if he doesn't prosecute Yahya Bello, is going to resign and so on. How many months now? How many weeks? And both agencies are not really sometimes respecting the court orders. And this is leading to all of these things. So I think rather than changing the laws, you see, I've always argued Nigeria will have enough of the laws to govern us. We don't need any more new laws. What we need is our attitude to govern us, our attitude in our operations. Of course, as a teacher and guidance counselor, I know one of the most difficult things to do is change of attitude. So we need to do a lot of advocacy to change the attitude of our citizens, particularly those coming into office.
You know, some time ago, you granted an interview, and you said that Nigerians may not get the kind of leaders they want because they don't seem to be doing the right things to elect those kinds of leaders.
That's correct.
Has anything changed ever since?
No, I still hold that view. If I may start on that line, Chamberlain, you see, in the INEC register, we have 93 million registered voters. And I believe they are not fake. They're all there. But on the day of the election, what percentage of these 93 million come to vote? Chamberlain, I'm worried. We are descending so low. Today, we have a president that is sitting there because of only 8 million votes out of 93 million registered voters. So I think all of us being elected are not really representative enough of the people. On the day of the election, put all the votes together. You don't have to up to 40 million. Where is 50 million voters? So I think the problem is the parties are guilty. INEC is guilty. All the civil societies, all our institutions. And I've since discovered that what really is happening, when you come to do the registration of voters, the traditional leaders are involved, the clerics, the imams, the preachers, everybody is saying, and I've seen in this country a situation whereby even some churches said, unless you show your INEC voter's card, you won't come in, and so on. But when the elections come, all of these categories step out. You leave the environment to what you call the politicians, the political parties. I expect a lot of the same mobilization on the time of the election. I think most of them are stepping aside because they feel they don't want to appear partisan. But it's not partisan. Mobilize the people to come out and vote. If at a polling booth, Chamberlain, you have up to 500 registered voters and 300 turn out to vote, nobody, no amount of thugs, even if you come with a gun there, you cannot disperse these people and snatch boxes. But the situation whereby in a ballot box, you have 500 registered voters, only 10, 15, 20 come to vote. These thugs, 2, 3 of them, they will come and send away the polling class, snatch the boxes and take them away. So I think part of our challenge is to enlighten, of course the media too, to enlighten Nigerians to come out to vote on the day of election. All this complaint we are making about what governments do. If you fail to come and vote, you don't have the moral right to complain. Why were you?
But there's some people have suggested that for us to address some of the challenges we have with the country, even though they say a lot rises and falls with leadership, the kinds of people that we elect.
Exactly.
Now they think, even if Northern coalition of Northern Democrats come today, if tomorrow the Southern region come up with their own group, that we seem not to be addressing the main issue because they think that our style of politics, winner takes all, is a problem. They think that if we change that, there won't be so much, they spend all their money, they do everything to get into that position because they just want to go there and then leave the resources of the country.
Exactly.
And so if we try and de-emphasize that and don't make it a winner-take-all approach, that way there might be a lot less agitation and the way things are going. Do you agree with that?
Well, I quite agree with that. And I want to say, Chamberlain, you see, charity begins at home. By this, I mean the political parties. If all the parties end up giving you evils to choose from, these are some of the problems. You see, once you get it wrong, I have been advocating this, once you get it wrong at the political party level, it's garbage in, garbage out. They will bring in, it will be a vicious cycle. If you get the wrong people in charge of political parties, they want to have their likes to come into government. And you find that the so-called primaries in most cases are being abused, money is being exchanged. It's like going to purchase the ticket and so on. And the exorbitant cost of even asking people to pay for the contest. How can you get the best of people? Most of the time, most of the best people do not have that kind of money. Of recent, I understand some states were conducting local government election. They said for you to contest chairmanship, you have to buy the form 10 million. For you to contest councillorship, you have to buy the form 5 million. Where would my young man who is committed to serve his people in my village find 5 million to buy the form because he wants to come and serve in his community as a councillor or as a chairman? So I think while I agree that we need to change our attitude, we need to really get things done better, the political parties. And we even urge people to really get into all the political parties so that they make sure correct people are elected. And when the contest comes in, they ensure that the parties really give a very level playing ground so that all people that can participate, all those that think can have something to offer. And in some cases, even the communities go on search and get the right people to come in.
For instance, I mean, yes, you say people should come in, but there are lots of young people out there who think, look, they want to come in. But these people who have been there for like forever make it difficult for them. They come up with political thugs, they put humongous fee, they make the entry level very difficult, even though the paper qualification is almost next to nothing compared to when you're looking for a job. Exactly. So that generation thinks that your generation has failed them.
That is exactly what we're out to change. It's not just about getting the leadership. We want to mobilize. That's why I said when you talk of the leadership, we are talking of the followership. part of our challenge and our objective in the League of the Northern Democrats is to mobilize the people, to mobilize the communities, to understand that don't just wait until during election a candidate will come and give you some pittance, not more than 5,000 worth of food item, and you bring him into office, and in 4 years you end up embezzling 5 billion of your money, and you start complaining. So one of the things that we are trying to do is to enlighten the public, enlighten the youth, enlighten all the voters, that if you want to have a change, please, from the councillor upwards, try to find out who is it. We want to disabuse the mind of the people to stop talking of where are you coming from, what tribe, what section of the country. Talk about who is it, what antecedents do you have behind you? What did you do in the past? What records can you show to prove to us that you can do better when you come on board?
It's an ambitious goal, I would say, you have set for yourself with the Coalition of Northern Democrats. That's the name, right?
Yeah. League of Northern Democrats.
League of Northern Democrats.
That's right. Okay.
Well, I'm just looking at, because your opening statement, you had quite a lot to say. You touched on almost everything, every single aspect. But, one cannot ignore the issue on education, because just yesterday, former President Olusegun Obasanjo was in Bauchi State, and he talked about this issue of education, how we have a crisis on our hands. It says, the World Bank says Nigeria has at least 20 million children out of school. I mean, someone has questioned who's doing the counting, but I mean, let's go with their figures, because the federal government disputes that. But the number of children that even the federal government admits that we have out of school is staggering. And we know that it's a ticking time bomb. I mean, we're already beginning to see the effects of some of those things. And I believe that as an educator, that must really, really tug at your heart. To say, how is it that we ended up here where so many children are out of school? So many children are unable to contribute to the future as Nigerians.
Now, you see, this is my daily cup of tea, starting from classroom teacher, school principal for 13 years, director of planning and education, permanent state education, minister of education. And I was into the trade unionism of the NUT Principals Conference. You must have heard of ANCOPS. I rose up to the national president of principal of secondary schools in this country. So I've known it all. Part of the problem is lack of continuity in our policies. You see, we have a very beautiful policy on education. Let me give you a particular instance that led to some of this problem. In the mid-70s, the policy was reviewed during the same Obasanjo time. We were even saying the new national policy on education. The policy was reviewed to bring in what we say more of functional education. And that was the time when the UPE was introduced. The idea of the UPE, the products of the UPE in the mid-70s that were anticipated to graduate in the early 80s was to go into the new arrangement of 6334. The new national policy, of course not new anymore, provides that the junior secondary school component was supposed to be more of the old craft school arrangement, whereby every student from JSS 1 to JSS 3 should have acquired a certain skill, should have acquired a certain craft. And in fact, the policy even said, after junior secondary school, you are supposed to be somehow employable. But unfortunately, in the mid-70s, when the Obasanjo government made these changes, with all sense of hope and aspiration, they placed orders for importation of a lot of introductory technology equipment from Korea, from Germany, from many other places. By 1981-82, when the first graduates of the UPE program came on board, the new civilian governments were not ready for them. No plan for them. And this was nationwide from the federal to the states. You know, immediately they took over from the military. They want to give the impression that here we are talking of rural infrastructure, rural development, electricity, and so on. This aspect was ignored. I was a school principal then. We had in our hands students of the UPE coming into junior secondary school. No, the instructors to do the introductory technology aspect were not there. The equipments were not put in place in all the schools. They remain in their cartons and so on. While the government was importing the equipments, nobody remembered that you need to prepare the instructors, the teachers. If you don't have teachers in school, you have a refugee camp. It's not just about the buildings. It's not just about the furniture of the classroom. It's not just about getting the students. The teacher is what makes a place to be called a school. And this was not done. So everybody was moved into junior secondary school. We continued the old grammar program. They finished junior secondary school. We pushed them into senior secondary school. And the population that came from the UPE program was so overwhelming. That was the beginning of overcrowding in our institutions. And unfortunately, because of the absence of the introductory technology provision, the students graduate from schools, no skills, nothing, they are not employable, and they're in large numbers. That was the beginning of this out of school or dropouts that are not in school and not having any role to play. And I think subsequently, my mentor, Professor Fafunwa, used to say that it takes you one jump to fall into the ditch. Suddenly it takes you 100 or 1,000 jumps to come out. The neglect has been there for a very long time. One may ask, while you were there, what did you do? Of course, I was there for 10 months as a Minister of Education. But we started packaging all of these things and see how we can now transform the situation. We marshaled out a program in the Jonathan government, mass production of teachers, so that we have enough of the teachers in our schools. Before you even talk, environment matters, of course, but you don't have teachers. So most of the civilian administrations were after building of the schools. I can give you billions tomorrow. In 6 months, you can build thousands and hundreds of thousands of classrooms. But in 6 months, will you be able to provide the teachers? No. So this has to be addressed, and that is where we are getting the challenge.
All right.
And so by the grace of God, I think if we get some serious planning as to what we need to do, and education is the main vehicle of change in anything. Unless we address that, all of these stories will continue to be recycling itself all over the place.
All right, Ayo.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Senator, I'm going to stay on that particular issue. When you say there was a lack of, or there had been lack of continuity among some administrations in the North, or maybe in other parts of the country as well, does that indicate a lack of vision?
Of course, yes. You see, I think even within the 25-year dispensation that we've had, you'll find that governments of the same parties do not have a common program or common policies. Whenever they come in, check, all the political parties are guilty of this. One will expect that a political party has its own manifesto. And if A is elected today, the party ensures that he's implementing the policy, the manifesto of the party. After 4 years or 8 years, the same party produces the same government. You discover that all of the previous policies and programs are jettison, are abandoned, and they come up with the new issues. So this is part of the lack of continuity.
Now, does that also now
continuity?
Yeah. My apologies. Does that also mean that it's a national problem and not just something among governments?
It is.
So a lack of vision is a national problem?
No, it is national. It is a national problem, and at all levels. At all levels. I remember some 2 decades ago, one university researcher went around the federation and brought out a report that 85 to 90% of local government chairmen elected didn't know why they were there. And I'm afraid, if you come up, with all due respect, some of the governors and probably to the extent of a president do not know why they are there. You see, people don't even understand that governance is about addressing the aspirations, the wishes of the people they are governing. How many of them even take their time to find out what are the expectations, what are the challenges, what are the aspirations? You can imagine a state government that cannot give adequate drinking water, clean water, adequate healthcare program, going to spend hundreds of billions on flyovers to beautify the city or what?
Well, Senator,
after what percentage of our people have cars to fly over your flyovers?
So I'm going to ask that question again.
Address
yeah.
Unless, yes.
Yeah, my apologies. So now, number one, so two things quickly on this particular issue and then we'll move on. On the one hand, there are those who believe that the national vision is already stated in maybe the national pledge or in the national anthem, one way or the other. On the other hand, just a second, sir. On the other hand, there are those who say, so if we have a vision or we don't have a vision, so exactly what are you saying? Are you saying we have a national vision that is not being chased, being pursued, being followed, or we don't have one and we need to create?
I believe we have a vision, and from the Constitution and several other documents, we have a vision. We have well spelled out what governments are supposed to be, even though you don't have all the details. Our problem, and all the parties, there is no political party that will get registered without coming up with a well spelled out vision in the name of manifesto. But our quarrel is that our attitude to all of those documents. If you go to INEC, all the 18 registered political parties, you find they registered their parties with very well detailed manifestos. But what are the parties doing to ensure that those elected under the platform of their parties are really pursuing the objectives, the manifesto, the vision of the political party as mentioned in their manifestos? And that's why I said, if you get it wrong in the political parties, how many of the leaders of the parties even care to insist and find out what the government under their parties elected are doing?
Isn't that a problem on its own?
If you have the right people to monitor, that's the word, to checkmate, to summon. But a situation whereby you don't have the right people in the leadership of the party who say, okay, Governor, come. Mr. President, let's meet.
Isn't that a problem on its own, Senator?
These are the things that we promised the country.
Yeah, isn't that a problem on its own? So on the one hand, it's so easy, it seems like it's so easy for a politician to jump from one political party to another for one reason or the other. It suggests that, look, it's not a function of a purpose. It's a function of interests. So if you say that we have a vision as a nation, what is the Nigerian mission's or vision statement that every Nigerian can say, this is the Nigerian vision and this is what every politician should be held accountable for?
Well, I think it's very spelled out that Nigerians, one of the vision is to have a united nation, a prosperous nation, and these are not said in so much details in the Constitution. If we say we need, the Constitution says we must have a united nation. It is up to the operators of government to ensure what do we need to do to achieve this united nation. If the Constitution says we need to have a very prosperous nation, it is the operators of the Constitution, people in government, that are supposed to come up with policies that will lead us to having a prosperous nation. So you don't have to have every detail of the vision in the Constitution. We have all what it takes in the Constitution telling us what is the vision, where we need to get to, where we need to find ourselves in Nigeria.
Okay.
So it is the operators. I trust you. I said earlier on, we have enough of the laws. We have a lot of the legislation governing our operations in government. Our problem is getting the people to respect and obey what is there. And for them to do so, we need somebody to operate like a chief whip from the political parties to monitor, to insist.
I'm hoping that we'll be able to get that kind of person sometime soon, if we already have that person to activate. Well, let me take you back to something that you said earlier in responding to Malkwe's question. You talked about functional education. And I hold on to it because of your responses to the issue of out-of-school children and the comment of former President Obasanjo. And a good number of times, almost every opportunity he gets, he tells us as a nation that if we don't do something about out-of-school children, in another 10 years, we have an army of potential bandits and terrorists on our hands. Now, when you talk about functional education, what do you mean?
Yeah. Oh, yes. What I mean, I've made some explanation. You see, we need to go back to the drawing board. These issues are still in the national policy on education. Number one, we must have, if you like, a crash program. In the UPE days, many of us are aware, there was a crash program producing a number of teachers to match the number of children that are being mobilized to go to school. Today, there isn't that program. I remember when I was in office as a minister, I made a memo to the council, it was approved. We upgraded some colleges of education to universities of education. Our intention is to make sure we have a program nationwide by federal government, by state governments, mass production of well-trained teachers. That is number one. That will bring in a lot of hands to handle the situation, the population that we have in school. Number two, to go back to drawing board and see what do we do to implement the introductory technology aspect of the national policy on education. There is no way you can have functional education if you don't have the right instructors to produce the teachers that will come and handle that curriculum of introductory technology, where you teach all this kind of skills in school. And this is not any rocket science. It had happened before. Virtually every part of Nigeria, we have what we call the craft school. My immediate senior attended craft school in Kano. Before the end of his 3 years craft school, he was able to come home and do some little wearing in the home, some mending of broken chairs here and there. So if at that level of junior secondary school, that used to be craft school, it is the same curriculum, the same policy, the same program of the craft school that was now translated into junior secondary school. That is the main purpose of breaking the secondary school. You and I probably attended 5-year secondary school. But the first 3 years was meant to produce some functional education, no matter how small, so that at the age of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, the child is able to use his hands to produce something, and they can easily be employable. And then, of course, the universities, I understand they have introduced a lot of entrepreneur program. This needs to be intensified. The government needs to give them a lot of funds. Some of the complaints in the universities, they do have the directorate or the department of entrepreneurial program, but how much funding is realized there?
Well, we do clearly have several things to address. If we need to fix a lot of the challenges. Always a pleasure to have you on, Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, former governor of Kano State, former Minister of Education and Chairman League of Northern Democrats. Thank you and all the best to you.
Thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to another day.
Yes, we do, absolutely. Well, Business Morning comes up now.